Good morning, Facebook world. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. Thank you for joining me on my Facebook Live this morning. As always, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. I will answer throughout the live. So just go ahead and ask. And if you are listening to the recording, I will regularly check back, so feel free to ask questions. For those of you on the call, please say hello. Let me know where you're from, what kind of dog you have. Send me some likes and some loves. Um, let's see. Today, I want to hear what is something your dog does that makes you laugh out loud? What silly thing does your dog do? My border collie Speck likes to say good morning. In the morning, you get up, and as you're getting dressed and stuff, he likes to talk. He's a woo woo woos, and that makes me laugh every single day. It's a great way to start the day. So, while we give people a couple of minutes to join us, I want to talk about something that's relevant to me right now this week in dog training. So, this week, as most of you know, I have a 6-month-old border collie puppy whose name is Wicca. And coming when called has always been a challenge. So, that was my focus this week. Right from the beginning, I did what I've done with all my other puppies, with all my clients' dogs: say the name, take a step, offer the cookie, and she went meh. At first, she wasn't real food driven, and then she was kind of like meh. It really wasn't as pretty as I'd like. And it got better, but it wasn't. I want spectacular recalls. I want that recall that you can call your dog off a running deer. And we were not working towards that. Her recall was mediocre at best. And this means her off leash was restricted because she didn't come when called. Not that I expect a 6-month-old puppy to come every time, but she didn't come enough times that I was very careful. Luckily, I live out in the country, so she still got piles of off leash. And what happened is she didn't just not come, she played keep away. And keep away for me is terrifying because that's the dog who running away from you can get itself into trouble. So you've got a keep away is, to me, the most important thing to teach your dog not to do. Hi, Mary, how are you? So Wicca was weird. She'd come 3 times in a row perfectly, and then you'd call her on the 4th time, and she'd be like, "Yeah, I'm done with you now," and walk away. So I've learned to very much keep my training sessions extremely short with her, and that's helped. But I tried changing rewards, locations, tone, and still it wasn't quite as good as I wanted. The fun thing about dog training, or what I enjoy about dog training, is once you remove the fear and the emotion, the frustration, the, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to teach my dog to come when called, and the frustration of, why isn't this working? It's all problem solving. And I've always really enjoyed problem solving. So a few weeks ago, I did a Facebook Live on choice. And when I was writing that up, I said, if your dog's not getting it right, reduce the choices your dog has as options until he makes the right choice more often. You put in some value, you build some love there, and then you can start adding more choices. So I thought of that with Wicca, and most of our recall training was done off leash because she was a puppy. She didn't go anywhere. So it was easy to do off leash. So instead, I put her on leash. This way, when she chose to go, yeah, I'm done with you, I'm leaving, I could stop her from leaving. And then she'd think about it for a minute, and then she'd come to me. And I may not have given her the cookie every time because now she didn't come exactly how I wanted, but I still prevented her from leaving and prevented me from getting frustrated. And I was still able to praise her up when she did come. So within days, I saw humongous improvement. I took away the questions. I was able to reward more. Right away, her clarity increased, and she is now coming at the 95% that I expect of a 6-month-old puppy with limited distractions. Where before she was coming at like 50-60% with limited distractions. So, how is your dog's recall? Is this something that makes you go, oh, I may be giving my dog too many choices? So, do you wish his recall was better? Is this something that can help you? Okay, so back to the topic for today. Help, my puppy has hit adolescence. So your puppy's becoming a teenager. This is close to my heart because Wicca is almost 6 months old. I think she's 6 months old on Tuesday, and she's totally hitting adolescence. Your sweet puppy is growing up. I love the look of adolescent animals. That leggy, kind of awkward, kind of silly, a little crazy. I love that look. I like it in like animals, cats, horses, everything. And kids, I love when they're long and leggy and kind of awkward. Um, but all of a sudden, your sweet puppy, who was easy to live with, cuddly, fun, is driving you a bit nuts. Not listening, definitely not coming when called, maybe growling at you the odd time. Adolescence starts at approximately 5 months and lasts till about a year and a half, too. That might be a slight bit later for the larger breeds and a slight bit earlier for the smaller breeds, but that's pretty well the time range. Like puppyhood, there's a lot of things that happen during this stage that your dog will outgrow if, and this is what the caution is, if you do not allow these things to become a habit. So, are you there with your dog starting to wonder what is going on? Do you know the age most dogs get given up is 7 to 9 months, right when they're full blown into adolescence? The puppy cuteness has left the building and the full blown adolescence has arrived. This is the same age people call me for training and everybody else for training. In this Facebook Live, I'm going to talk about some changes and solutions to help you survive your dog's adolescence. The first change I'm going to talk about is an increase in independence. At approximately 5 months old, your dog's range will start to increase. I hear this all the time with my puppy owners. Oh, my puppy's wonderful. My puppy never leaves the yard. And at 5 months old, it's like they have a calendar. The dog starts to leave the yard and not come when called. And it is always gradual. The dog starts wandering a little further and coming a little slower. And then all of a sudden they're like, and I'm gone. And of course you chase. So now you're not just teaching them not to come when called, but you're also teaching them to run away. Um, as young puppies, they instinctively stay close to home. That's because their pack, their group, their family will protect them. But Mother Nature is a smart cookie. To prevent inbreeding right before they start to hit sexual maturity, which kicks in around 7 months, they need to start wandering. So that way they disperse and don't inbreed. Think teenage children. They need to stay close to their parents the need to stay close to their parents starts to decrease, and the need to go out and investigate the world starts to increase. So with a dog, as much as we want this for our children, we don't necessarily want this for our dog. I want independence and confidence in my dog. I don't want a dog who says, see ya, I'm going for a walkabout. So things you can do to start to prevent this problem. First of all, I'm a huge believer in fenced yards. I live out in the country, lots of people with like 2 acre lots who think their dog can run off leash on their lots and stick around. And I see very, very few dogs who can. So I'm a huge believer in fencing at least a section of your yard to give your dog the ability to go off leash safely. You can let him out to the bathroom, not have to worry about him getting on the road or getting into the neighbors or anything like that. You can boundary train a dog, but it's much more challenging. And I've had enough clients call me with their 5, 6, 7 months old dog telling me the dog who never left the yard got hit by a car. So I'm a huge believer in fences. Now, the other part that starts happening is your dog's range when you're running him off leash starts to increase. So things I do to prevent this from happening. The first thing is regularly go to new locations. You want to constantly be practicing your dog sticking around. By the time they're about 2, I find most dogs have established their range and don't really change it. So you only have to be careful at this sort of for this year and a half, and then you're good. You can walk the same trail forever and your dog will probably only range as far as whatever they're comfortable. Of course, breed and temperament of the dog is going to make a huge difference on how much they range. My 10-year-old border collie Iggy, I had to work a pile to keep his range to what I wanted. My 5-year-old border collie Spec, I have never worked this exercise. He has never ranged too far. He is almost always within sight. And even if I can't see him in the forest, he's close by. Um, so the more comfortable your dog is, the more likely he is to expand his range. The more confident your dog is, the more likely he is to expand his range. So when you walk the same trail every day, they get really good at going, this is how long it takes you to get to this point, this point, this point, this point. I can go off and do whatever I want, and I'll just meet you at the end or halfway or whatever. When you start going to unfamiliar trails, your dog has no idea where you're going to be. So right away, he has to keep a better eye on you. I also play hide and seek a lot with a dog like this, where if he goes too far, gets invested in a sniff, I go hide, constantly reminding them and reinforcing them for paying attention to where I am. So yeah, have you noticed this in your dog, your teenage dog starting to increase their range? And it's not saying past teenage you can't decrease the range, but I find once they hit 2, it's kind of like this is what you're going to be working with for a long time. Ideally, you hit adolescence with your dog with some good skills in. But if you don't, it's a great time to start working on stuff. It is never too late to train your dog. This is when your dog is going to question you, basically saying, do I really have to do what I ask? Again, think back to teenage children. You need to be prepared and have tools and management in place that you can fall back on. When your dog asks a question, you have to be ready to give an answer. For example, you're walking your dog off leash and you call your dog and he looks at you and turns around and keeps going. Hopefully you have good collar grab work. And this is why I teach good collar grab work, because then all you do is just approach your dog, take him by the collar, kind of move him a couple of feet and be like, hey, don't you remember you're supposed to come when called? And hopefully that works. But if it doesn't, calling your dog again is not going to cause him to come. Instead, he's going to start moving further and further away. So try to prevent yourself from calling over and over. I know it's so easy to fall into that trap. And keep in mind, every situation and every dog is different. What I would do with Wicca, my almost 6-month-old border collie, I wouldn't do with another dog. So with Wicca, this is what I would do. The next walk, and probably for a week or so, Wicca would be on leash through this part of the trail. I would be doing a lot of name game in everyday life, reminding her it's a good idea to come when called. I would be doing collar grab work so she understands that when I walk towards her, she should come towards me and not the other way. And if I decided to let her off leash, I would not call her unless she was close to me and looking at me, almost guaranteeing success. So super, super easy. I would spend a few days making super easy recalls where I'm like, good girl, good girl, good girl. And then as those were working, I would challenge her a little bit. So maybe she's 20 feet away from me and I call her and see if she comes. And if she doesn't, we go back to the beginning. I'd go up and do collar grab and I'd go back to, okay, you're on leash, but we're going to put lots of money into that bank of coming when called. Finally, the last step would be proofing her recall, clarifying her understanding of coming is not optional, regardless of what you see. If you want more info on proofing, check out our Facebook Live from July 24th on choice. I know this sounds like a lot of work. You're like, isn't there an easier way? But if you take every single time your dog asks a question and right away do something about it, honestly, there's not that many questions. And a year down the road, you have a dog who comes when called, which is worth every effort right now. For example, in the winter, I let Speck out in the front yard to go to the bathroom. And he pulls it maybe once, maybe twice a winter, and he's an adult, he's 5. He's supposed to go out, go to the bathroom, come back. And he stays within the lights so I can see him. But every now and then he starts to range a little further. Right away, he gets put on a long line. And for about a week, he's just on a long line. So I prevent the ability for him to go outside of the lights or wander too far. And then after that, usually I take that leash off and he's back to, I go out, I go to the bathroom, I come back. It's perfectly fine that they ask questions. They're not being bad. They're asking questions. Your answer, your management of that answer is what's going to give you a dog. So if I didn't put him on leash, I would start standing at the door and bitching. Hey, come on, hurry up, get in here, right? And that would happen every single night. And pretty soon I wouldn't be able to let him out in the front yard because he'd get off the steps and take off, which I know this because that's pretty well what happens in the backyard with my husband, because that's exactly what happened. Speck wouldn't come in. My husband would stand at the door and be like, come on, come on, come on. And now that stresses Speck out because now Speck hides on the other side of the deck until I go out and call him and then runs right in. So the next behavior I see come up at this time in a dog's life is defense drive. All of a sudden, your super friendly, confident dog is alarm barking. That means when they're like, woo, 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 woo. Fear periods, which I talk about in our Facebook Live on July 10th, happen throughout adolescence. There are times when your dog becomes super sensitized to the environment. It's like their defense drive kicks in hyper mode, and they become super paranoid and super worried. And you just got to work through this. We had a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. The summer she hit adolescence, she would wake us up in the middle of the night, alarm barking. It only happened about 5 times, but still almost gave me a heart attack every single time. We think it was deer outside the house, but in the 10 years she was with us, she only did this for one summer for a couple of months, and I guarantee she never did it again. And I guarantee you the deer were always there. So it just goes to show it's just super alert, super paranoid. As they mature, the defense drive mellows out to a more manageable level. Wicca's just starting to hit this stage. Last week, there was a dog approaching, pulling, kind of barky, but usually she would still wag her tail and try to say hello. Instead, she totally alarm barked. I was like, whoo, look at you. Right away, I moved us further from the situation and held her collar to help her stay in her body. If you want to know more about that, go back to my Facebook Live on July 2nd on fear reactivity. It took a few seconds, but Wicca was able to control herself and watch the dog walk by. If she hadn't, I would have moved her further away, or depending on the situation, just walked away. How I deal with this is to continuing to get my dog out and exposed to various situations she can handle. The important part is what she can handle. Sometimes with adolescent dogs, if they're in a fear period, the best thing you can do is take a break. Just do stuff around the house or wherever they're comfortable for a couple of weeks and then go back to going out. Fear periods do come and go, but trying to fight with one head on usually ends up with your dog being sensitized, not desensitized. At any time in any situation they can't handle it, I remove them from the situation, not letting them practice alarm barking. That's the biggest thing right now, is do not let them practice the habits that you don't want to stick forever. A lot of drives kick in during this time period in your dog's life. Natural hardwired drives like retrieving, herding, hunting, guarding. Much as I love seeing a dog doing what he was bred to do, some of these behaviors are not something I want to see in my everyday life with my dog. For example, a German Shepherd is bred to lunge and bark. If you've ever watched Schutzhund or any police dog training, that's what they're bred to do. But they also need to understand how to walk down the street on leash politely without lunging and barking. A Beagle is meant to use their nose and hunt. But again, walking down the street, pulling with their nose to the ground is not anybody's idea of a good time. A Border Collie is meant to herd and round up the sheep. But your dog can't be herding your children playing in the backyard because, he'll jump on them, he'll bite at them, and that's not good. So remember when changing behavior. So this just goes to show it's not saying I want to ever eliminate a drive. And ideally, I want to activate this drive and take them herding or take them doing something that they're hardwired to do. It's the coolest thing in the world to watch a dog do what he's bred to do. But at the same time, it can't be there all the time. Remember, when changing any behavior, you need to create an alternate behavior to replace the first one. When I got my first Border Collie, my son was 1.5 years old. Picture it, little boy running around like little boys do, baby Border Collie chasing child down and jumping and biting like baby Border Collies do. All 3 of us spent a lot of time training Iggy to stay on a bed no matter what. It was perfect. Dog was getting trained, child was participating in training, which he loved to do. It was a win-win. We would sit in the backyard with my son running around, and I would reward Iggy watching and lying on the bed. By the end of the summer, they could be running around together with Iggy, not chasing him down every chance he got. So I started with my son walking by the dog and I'd reward. And then my son moving up to a faster walk, my son running by the dog, my son throwing a toy. You just kept building success on top of success on top of success till eventually it did work. They could play in the backyard together. Interesting enough, with Ig, every spring for the first 3 years, I had to remind him. I had to go back and go, remember the bed, remember how we play with the child. And then again, for about 3 years, new children, again, we had to do some bed work to remind him not to chase down the new children. So it was interesting to see by 3 to 4, he was like, I got it, and never had a problem again. But before that, it did take some work every spring while he remembered what to do. Dogs are not fully mature till 4 to 5 years old. Neutered and spayed mature slower. Females mature quicker than males. The last change I want to talk about is chewing. Your dog is finally done teething and has started to calm down on the chewing and earn some house freedom. I see this all the time. And then it happens, the second chewing stage. Much more destructive than the first. Now your dog has big teeth. You think baby teeth did damage? You haven't seen anything yet. All of a sudden you notice that all your dog's toys are destroyed. And this is when they will chew through their leash in seconds. I remember with my Akita, we were sitting at a barbecue and he was on leash, sitting at my feet. And I went to move, and yeah, the leash was in 2 pieces. It was milliseconds. The teething starts at approximately 7 to 9 months and lasts a few months. Most dogs are already very mouth oriented, meaning they like to put everything in their mouth. This is part of how they experience their world. Some like to also chew and destroy, especially at this age. I've been told it is when the molars are setting into the jawbone. Not sure if that's true, but whatever the reason, everything that goes into their mouths gets dropped back to their molars and gets shredded. You can usually tell when it is this past because all of a sudden the toys they were destroying like crazy, they're not. When Iggy, my 10-year-old border collie, was this age, the only thing he could chew were bones. Everything else got destroyed instantly. He was and I, to the point where I was worried he was going to swallow stuff. I have a lot of Kongs and he was eating them, even the black ones that are supposed to be super hard. It's always fascinating how some dogs really like to chew, even as an adult. Now he knows to chew appropriate things. But as an adult, Iggy's always really liked to chew, where I've had Speck, my middle border collie. He's not a chewer. He'll chew a bone, but he'll chew a bone for a half hour and then he's done. Where Ig will sit out there for hours chewing a bone. So you want to make sure to keep your management in place a little while longer, not expecting your dog. I see so many, oh, my dog's 6 months old, teething's done. I've started to give him house freedom. He's doing so well. And I'm like, be ready. It's going to happen. So hopefully this live has given you some more tools to get you and your dog through adolescence. If you are having problems with your adolescent dog that I can help you with, just contact me to find out more information about our remote and local training options. Thank you very much for listening. I will be doing another Facebook Live on Friday, August 20th at 10 a.m. If you have any special topic requests, please feel free to let me know. Have a wonderful weekend. It looks to be beautiful here in Ontario. And we will see you hopefully next week at my next live. Bye for now.